Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It is another beautiful day. I hope your day is going to be awesome. And if it isn't, take a moment for yourself and reflect on all of your blessings. That definitely helps me, and I get myself back into it. So having said that, what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to do my best to show you all how to make your students understand what they're about to learn. So I did this particular workshop. I did 2 in one day, and you've already saw one half of that particular video. And now I'm going to show you the other half because it was broken into 2 parts. And in my particular district, we call it making sure the students understand the success criteria, what they need to understand what they're learning and how they're supposed to understand how they're learning. So I hope that makes a little sense. But when you watch this video, I think it'll be more clear what I'm trying to express. But I do understand because a lot of teachers are giving me feedback on, I understand the learning goal. I understand the demonstration of learning. I really think I now have a full understanding after participating in that particular training on the success criteria. But can you teach me how to get to that part as far as actually teaching reading comprehension, understanding nonfiction text, understanding the difference between a narrative nonfiction and a narrative fiction story, and how I can relay that information to my students. So if that is something that you're looking for, don't fear. I will be doing more videos with actual kids, but you won't see their faces, of course, on how to actually teach reading comprehension, because I believe that's what most folks are saying. And guys, I'm looking at myself in the camera, and this looks like I have no lipstick on. So let me get a little color on these lips. But anyway, I've been doing pretty good. I have, I had a really big blessing. My aunt from Indiana, that's where I'm originally from, Gary, Indiana, and 2 of my play aunts, they even attended my wedding, which was like 17 years ago, came this past weekend and visited myself and my mom, because some of you may not know, but my mom has moved in with me, and it has been a major blessing. I thought it was going to be more difficult to transition because both of us have bright personalities. I get it from my mama. And but it's been really a pretty smooth transition. My husband always wanted my mother to live with us, and now she's of an age where I have 2 brothers that we're more comfortable with her living with us than living alone. And so the transition has been easy, pretty easy. The difficult part, to be frank, is her downsizing her home. She wanted to take everything, and it's like, Mom, some stuff you got to go. You don't need a toaster in your bedroom. There's a toaster downstairs. So she's getting adjusted, and she's one of the things that I'm really proud of her is she's not trying to, like, I'm going to make so much money off of this in the sense of the selling of her items. She's been really, really generous. I've received some things. My brothers have received some things. And she's just giving stuff away to family, friends, and their grown children, because she doesn't want to even deal with the hassle of, oh, I'm going to put it on Facebook Market. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but the natural, generous spirit that she has is something to be in awe of. So upcoming, and what you're going to see next is actually getting your students to understand what they are learning. And so they'll know, okay, at the end of this particular lesson, I should be able to do these 3 things or 4 things or 2 things, is whatever you're teaching. So again, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to today's training. And let's take a look at our motto for this particular school year. So let's say it together. We grow great readers, thinkers, and future leaders with excellence and equity. Having said that, let's take a look at our PLC agenda. We're going to do celebrations, take a look at a week at a glance, unpack the T's, LO and DOL, and exemplar review. But the main purpose of today's video is how to upgrade your lesson plan and to really stamp the success criteria. I know there's been some confusion about that, so that is the purpose of today's PD. Having said that, this is our vision and mission for our school. We're all about a garden theme because we believe if we pour and do the hard work into our students, nothing but beautiful flowers can grow, okay? So having said that, this is our norms. I want you to remember thinking the third way, assume a positive intent, stretch ourselves and others, and fully invest. And that is our agreement also with your leadership team. So let's take 10 seconds and choose which norm you're going to really push through this particular morning. All right, let's come back to the larger learning community. Having said that, let's start with celebrations. We're going to go by at least one person for each grade level. So at this time, please think of a celebration you want to share with the larger community. Let's begin with 5th grade.
5E, the DOL from yesterday averaged 85% or higher.
Ooh.
And it was all star STEM questions for informational tests.
Let's give it up for 5th grade. That's a good one. Congratulations. All right, going down the line, fabulous 4th grade. What would you like to celebrate?
Oh, that's me. I'm starting to teach poetry and I'm starting to get the hang of it.
Well, honey, you're in for a treat because that is the focus for the upgraded lesson. Poetry is the genre. All right, let's give it up for Miss Mitchell, this is her first year being a reading teacher. All right, fabulous 3rd grade. Who would like to speak for the 3rd grade team? Go ahead, Mr. Nino.
In 3rd grade, we have one of the top scorers in Texas for Achieve 3000.
Oh, in all of Texas? Okay, yes. Clap it up for Mr. Nino's class. Awesome. Celebrations on your admin team. We got a spot observation completed on every teacher, and we just got to finish putting it into the system. So it's only 3 more to go. All right. Okay, so today the standard that we're going to focus on is 3.6F, 4.6F, 5.6F, which is pretty much, it's going to be attested 4 times when it comes to poetry. So what I wanted to highlight is when people say, what do the kids need to know? They normally stick with the TEAC. That is not going to be our focus. How is that TEAC assessed on STAR? Okay? So I used the question stems for 3rd grade because we're not teaching for approaches. We're all masters or meets in this particular group. So having said that, we know lines suggest that the speaker feels. In lines, the placement of the word is meant to emphasize which lines of the poem best shows why the speaker likes, and throughout the poem, the speaker can best be described as feeling. So we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to figure out what do the students need to show in order to be successful on that particular, or those particular types of questions. So let's pause for the cause. So having said that, when we really want to dissect poetry, so our kids can have a thorough understanding of what that really breaks down to, based upon some of our other presentations and PDs, what do you want students to show because remember, this is an online test. What do you want to see on their paper that lets you know they understood that particular essay? Volunteers? Miss Wilson.
I want to see annotations.
Annotations, awesome. Who can expound on that? What does that mean?
Underlining your text evidence.
Underlining your text evidence. Miss Dawson.
For poetry, numbering the lines and stanzas.
Numbering the lines and stanzas, awesome.
Well, I like to see the poet's strategy actually on the paper.
The poet strategy, absolutely. Everything that all of you all said leads up to the Maple Lines way of the poet strategy. And I'm a huge fan of Buzzing with Miss B. I pretty much bought all her stuff. She's awesome. And so that is what we're going to show today. So when I or anyone comes into your classroom, if you look at your packets, the main anchor chart you want to have up is the poet strategy. So having said that, what do I mean by the poet strategy? Let's take a look at this LLC. When your kids are annotating, they should be able to fill out this particular box. Now, all they have to write are the letters poets. I'm not expecting the kids to write the question stems inside the box. This is what you're going to ask to make sure that they understand each letter of this particular acronym. So they're going to have just a T box, have poets in, and they're going to be able to fill that out. Now, the first thing they're going to tell you, what is the title? Typically, the title is the central idea, guys, of what the poem is mostly about, even in nonfiction and fiction. And then they're going to number the lines and stanzas. Why do we want the kids to number the lines and stanzas? Why do we want them to show that?
Most of the questions still tell you line such and such, stanza such and such, so
And-
it's easy to go back in.
Thank you. When you look at those question stems, they start with, as you can see right here, lines blank to blank, and lines blank to blank. Which lines of the poem? These are all the question start stems with that particular SC when it comes to poetry. So we want them to be comfortable and understand the difference between a line and a stanza. Making sense? All right, so then we look at the occasion, the questions you want to ask your students. Hey guys, we're gonna read this story. What's happening in this story, or what's the topic? Okay? And when they are able to answer that question, they'll automatically be able to tell you what type of poem it is. Versus narrative, which is typically a voice with inside the story, first person point of view, and it's typically to entertain. Or it could be lyrical, which has like a musical undertone to it, and therefore they'll be able to understand the difference. Making sense there? So having said that, the next part of that acronym strategy is the E, the emotion. You're going to ask your kids, what feelings are created? Who is feeling them? Just think about that for a second, because that's not easy. What are you feeling when you read this poem that normally deals with the tone, and who is feeling them? So when you look at some samples of poems, even if when you want to introduce particular genre, you may start off with a song. Something that is the clean version of that could be hip for our kids. When I taught this particular strategy, I was going through a little something and I was playing Sade, King of Sorrow. And even I'll never forget it, one of my students was like, dang, what happened to her? Because she said, I cried everyone's tears. I paid for all my future sins. And that line stuck out, and I never forgot it because I wrote the song lyrics out. And even they were like, dang, who hurt her? So having said that, that emotion that was evoked was one of sadness and despair. Not all poems is about sadness and despair. It could be joy, it could be funny, it could be remembrance. So that's what you want them to understand when you're asking that question. What emotions are you feeling, or what emotions the author wants you to create, and who is having that particular emotion? So that narrows down that comprehension of thoroughly understanding what the poem is about. So let me pause right there. Are there any questions about that particular part of the poet strategy? Is this making sense? Feeling good? Okay, so the next part is, and you all know they ask theme almost in every genre. And the theme centers around what lesson did you learn, and what message did the author want to convey? And guys, that's something you have to do on a daily basis. Where every time you have a student that is not doing their best behavior, I always say, okay, what could you have done differently? What did you learn? You want them to have that mindset, because just because some of the things are like white on rice or that kind of thing, that may not be an average saying in the younger generation's home. So we got to give those experiences, author's message. What did they learn? What did the author want to convey? And that right there, that word convey, is a vocabulary word that our students need to learn. Am I making sense? And so every time you can take the opportunity on every story that you do in your classroom, this is the type of question that you want to ask, so they have that repetitive practice. A lot of people think they can just make a packet, a star, and just give it to them. We're just gonna go over it. No, it is perfect practice makes perfect. You do not allow them to skip out on the poet strategy every time you give them a poem. It is perfect practice makes perfect. Am I making sense? Having said that, the last thing is, who is the speaker? They're going to identify who is actually talking. That relates back to the narrative or lyrical poem, and it's also telling us what that speaker is feeling when it comes to emotion. So typically I fill out, when I do this strategy, lines and stanzas, and then my first question after that is, who is the speaker, after I read the poem. I typically ask this second. Because just because it's at the bottom doesn't mean it's the last question. Am I making sense to you? Because that speaker may help them identify the emotion. That speaker may help them identify the theme. And then that speaker go, oh, I get what the occasion is. Making sense? So just because it's poet strategy doesn't mean you have to go in that order in order for the students to understand the question. All right, let's take a few minutes and we're going to discuss what we just reviewed among ourselves, and then we're going to come back to the larger learning community. Okay, guys, a few minutes have passed. What have we discussed among ourselves that we can add to the show part of the understanding of the poet strategy? Ms. Dawson?
That the order necessarily doesn't matter because they all go together and they help benefit the students because when they're looking at the questions. So sometimes the speaker might be easier to identify, and then maybe once you have the occasion, then you can circle back to the theme, those type of things, and it just gets them thinking about their, getting them pre-thinking before they answer the questions.
Beautiful. Ms. Martinez?
We were talking about like this strategy being very helpful because they're pulling elements of poetry and they're analyzing. They have like they will have answers ready already because these things are gonna be in the like they're gonna be asking the questions.
Beautiful. Mr. Neo, I was listening to your group and you had an aha moment. Will you please share?
Actually, there's two important things that I'd like to share. One is that I was going in order first with this identifying the speaker at the end, but I see that it makes much more sense if we do that right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is about selecting the theme, helping my students understand what the theme is,
Yes.
and examining themes in previous administrations of the STAR.
Yes.
A great resource.
All right, so let me stamp what all of you all said. One, we all are agreeing that we're going to use a voice strategy. Two, we do not have to go in the order. We normally want to identify the speaker at the lines and stanzas. Three, if they do this pre-work, it really helps them answer these particular STAR question stems. And theme is very difficult for students to understand, but we're going to take a look at some of the previous tests and the answer choices. That's the key. The answer choices that are given, so we have an idea of what we need our students to understand when it comes to theme. Raise your hand if you're in agreement. All right, beautiful. Okay, so having said that, that is how our students will show if they thoroughly understand a poem, if they are able to do the poet strategy. All right, moving on. Okay, so we know I am learning what? So we're going to pause right here and we're going to do this as a team. I have some giant Post-it notes. I'm going to pass these out and we're going to break down this particular block, and then you're rocking and rolling for next week, okay? Okay, guys, we're going to come back to the larger learning community. I was very impressed with some of the things that I was hearing at your table. So let me stamp what I saw you all do. Many of you all went back and looked at your STAR stems from the Lead Forward document. Some of you all went back and previewed your week at a glance. And then I saw some of you all sharing ideas while you were working in your teams. Having said that, so let's get to it. What do you want your kids to be able to say, I am learning what? Please raise your hand. Go ahead.
I am learning to make inferences using text evidence.
Okay, perfect. How about you, Ms. Martinez?
I blended inferences with text elements, so with another tip, and it says, I am learning why the poet uses imagery, literal, and figurative language.
Yes, both of you all are perfection because the SC is about inferencing. Miss Mitchell, I saw it light.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm learning to use text evidence to comprehend my reading.
Yes, and now I'm glad each one of you all said the key two words, text what? Evidence. If you can't show it or prove it, it doesn't occur. Remember, especially for my 4th and 5th grade teams, you had that part A and part B question. What's part B?
Text evidence.
Text evidence. That is what that is. So you want this to be synonymous. No matter what question they give me, if I cannot provide text evidence, you giving me a guess. You have not given me a correct answer. All right? So having said that, why is that important? What do you want your kids to say? So I can what? Now this is a little tricky for some people because people are so used to it being academic vocabulary. But remember, this is what we want the students to say. Mitchell.
So I can understand what I'm reading and answer my question.
Good. How about, what else? Dawson?
Mine sounds like Mitchum, but since it's poetry, I said the literal meaning of the poem.
Thank you. That is where I want you to go. And Mitchell, you knew into this, but your mindset was on the right track. You want to make sure that they identify the genre of the focus of the week. So if it was nonfiction, you would have said that. If it was fiction, you would have said that. But because it is poetry, we want to include that genre in that particular box.
So would it sound right, like how Dawson said, like the literal meaning?
The literal meaning, literal and figurative meaning. Because really, guys, when you think about that inferencing, it is about that figurative language. So many folks get caught up on, is it a simile? Is it a metaphor? Is it personification? That's not what they're asking you. They're asking you, what does that mean? What did the author convey when they used that particular sentence? So don't you highlight that, because that's part of teaching, but you don't drone in on explaining the differences between those figurative languages. And so they miss out on the big picture of understanding what the author is actually asking. So our success criteria, what can you want them to be able to do when they do their evidence? What we're saying, Martinez.
I can use a poet strategy. I can analyze elements of poetry. I can analyze figurative language.
Oh, that's it. Anybody else has a different answer? Because that was perfect. We're feeling good? Let's say it again, Martinez.
I can use a poet strategy. I can analyze elements of poetry. I can analyze figurative language.
Beautiful. All right, I like how some of us are upgrading our own charts. And then our DOL statement, I will be able to do what? What we say?
I will be able to tell my classmate what the poem means in a specific line.
Beautiful. And it doesn't have, this is subjective. It's what you really want them to focus in on that day. Don't think that DOL statement has to be the same Monday, Tuesday through Friday. Now, here's a deeper question. I hope it's deeper. Would you show this to your students?
Yes.
Yes. Don't you hate going to meetings and no one told you what y'all about to discuss?
Right.
I hate walking in and it's like, oh, we're doing this today. Oh, thank you. Like, you couldn't tell that told me, give me a pre-warning. This helps your kids know, oh, okay, I get where she's trying to go. This makes sense of why you're having them to practice certain things. So because by the end of the week, you're going to show this on a daily basis. And this is part of your lesson plan upgrade. So mind you, I am the queen of the remix. There's something that each of you all have done that I have stolen and put it in my own toolkit. Okay? Every teacher I have observed, I want you, oh, I like that. Send it to me. Like it. Send it to me. I'm taking a picture. Send it. That's what I do. It's not all about, oh, I just know this on my own. I steal from other great educators. So having said that, this is one of you all's digital focus wall. Check that out. And what do you see? I am genre, poetry. I'm learning to describe the elements of a poem from the basic Monday. Essential questions. How are the stanzas in the poem alike? How can the reader tell that this is a free verse poem? How can the reader tell this is a narrative poem? That was the focus of that particular day, free verse versus narrative poem. Here we have DOL, given a poem, I will be able to describe the elements of a poem with 90% accuracy. And the person wrote, I can read the question and circle the keywords. I can use the poet strategy. I can analyze the poem and determine the characteristics of the poem. That was just the Monday's digital focus wall. And then the things that you wrote down, that could be Tuesday. Then it could be Wednesday. I'll be able to understand the theme of each of a poem. So you see where I'm going with this? Every day could be something different, but it ties back to that genre. Is that making sense to you? Raise your hand if you have a question. Okay. So now that concludes this part of success criteria. And who can summarize what do we mean by success criteria? Let's give ourselves a few moments to